Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Inland Coast. My name is Winn, and I will be your service leader this morning. We gather here today on the unceded lands of the Muskogee Nation of Florida. We are grateful for the land and those who tended it before us. We are people of many different paths and beliefs who are brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers. While diverse in age, ethnicity, and gender, we share the same values centered around love and acceptance of all. Our goal is to open minds, inspire spiritual growth, and ignite a passion for social justice. All are welcome to join us in building this loving community. If you are visiting today, please fill out a card by the front door so we can connect with you. In your order of service, you'll find a description of upcoming services as well as announcements, which UUFEC Spring Cleaning, Saturday, March 29th, 8:30 to 12 noon. And we also have two people who would like to make an announcement.
Just to reiterate about the spring cleaning, so I'm sure I'll see the usual faces out there, but we'd like to see some new faces too. It's nothing strenuous, just, trimming and raking, picking up branches, so we'd love to have you come out, 8:30 this Saturday. And also, I don't know if, I'm sure a lot of you know that Sarah Ford had her baby boy. And I've got a card here I'd like to pass around for everyone's signature. So I'm going to start it to be passed around, and then whoever's at the end can just put it on the table back there. Thank you.
Good morning. I just want to second that the cleanup's a ton of fun. I've done a ton of them. I am so lacking in skills that any of you will contribute, just trust me. So it's really fun. And there's all kinds of activities for all kinds of abilities, so don't let that stop you. And then I just want to draw your attention to this first announcement under Dates to Remember, Saturday, April 5th. It's a goofy kind of announcement that says 10-ish to 1-ish hands-off rally in Fort Walton. It's actually going to start at 10:30. I will be sitting in the back, and all the details you want I will give. I'm not going to give them now, but hope to have a good UU showing, and we're going to get our t-shirts next week, so we'll be looking good. Thank you.
Just a quick announcement. If you haven't given your pledge yet, I have forms, and I'll be happy to hand you one if you can fill it in today. We're trying to get all of our budget numbers together so that we can have our annual budget meeting on the 27th of April. So see me after the service if you haven't already sent it in. If you're not sure if you sent it in or not, let me know and I'll tell you. Thank you.
After the service, please stay for coffee, snacks, and conversation, followed by what we call second hour, where you have your choice of several small discussion groups. Today's options are Speaker Circle in the front of the sanctuary, Who to Help and How, led by Cal Adams in the library, and Choir Practice, led by Cecile in the Harmony Room, which is like kind of back there. The prelude prepares us for a service. Our chalice will be lit by. Oh, our chalice will be lit by Charles. We come from many places, along different paths, bringing. Oh. We come from many places, along different paths, bringing different truths. We come with different histories and different realities, and yet we come together as one people, with faith that we can use our differences to heal ourselves and each other, to bring wholeness to a fractured world. We come seeking to find community, to find acceptance of who we are. In this place, we may find others who are much like us, and others who are much different. May our lit chalice remind us that we are a people taught by different stories, with many voices, but always one people, working for a world where love creates justice, and justice gives birth to peace. Please rise as you are able in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, Our World is One World, number 134 in your gray hymnal. All children are invited to come to the front for the Time for All Ages.
I'm going to need this microphone, right? A switch. Where's this? Ah. Is that on? It's on? Oh. So, you guys know what a fairy tale is? Hmm? No, it's T-A-L-E. It means a story. So this is, sometimes we can get a book to read a story to you guys, and sometimes we can't find a book that's very good. So I wrote a fairy tale. Okay, you want to put the map up? Okay.
And I did steal some of the wording from some other writers that you might recognize. In the high and far off times, O best beloved, the earth looked like this. Okay? There's this big ocean, and there's something up here called Iceland that caught on fire and burned in 1456, according to the map, and a white bear, and Greenland, and then this is the newfound land of Master Cabot, where there is much gold and little creatures dancing around a fire, and here is Florida. And Barbados, and here is the Great Strait, which leadeth from us to Cathay. And down here is isles full of savage men. So you know what Cathay is. That's what they used to call China. So the strait under Florida gets you to China. Right? Okay. And this is the Chinese sail on this ocean. And way up here is land unknown. I think we now call that Canada. Okay? But this is what the world was like at the time of our story. Okay, at this time there were creatures, and they were living in what we'll call the green and pleasant land. And the green and pleasant land is not on this map because you can't get the whole thing on the TV screen. It was over here somewhere. Okay? And just for ease of talking about these particular creatures, we're going to call them the green creatures because they live in the green and pleasant land. And one of these green creatures, he called himself a Venetian, and his name was Marco Polo. And he went to China with his father. They started in the green and pleasant land, and they stayed on land, and they went all the way behind the TV and came out on the other side and saw China. And in China, and this creature's name was Marco Polo. In China, he discovered this game that you could play in a swimming pool, and he named the game after himself. So eventually, it took him like 3 years to get there. And eventually, he and his father got back to the green and pleasant land, and all of the creatures in the green and pleasant land, the green creatures, wanted to learn this game. So they wanted to get to China. But it took 3 years to get there over land, so they decided they were going to go this way to get to China. Okay? And so they made this great big floating thing out of wood, and they went out on the water, and they didn't have GPS, believe it or not. No cell phones, no way to call and say we're lost, where are we going? But after about 2 months, they reached some land, and they thought, oh goody, we made it to China. And they saw some creatures there, but those creatures didn't look Chinese. They knew what Chinese creatures looked like because Marco Polo had told them. But these creatures didn't look like Chinese people. So we are going to call those creatures for this story the forest and beach creatures because, you know, we didn't know what they were. So obviously, they said, well, this isn't China, so we'll have to figure out another way to learn to play this game. But this looks like a good place because there's lots of trees and, you know, lots of animals to eat, and it looks like a really great place to live. So we'll just stay here. And But what to do about these creatures who are already here? Right? So they don't look like us, and they are uncultivated, barbarous. They don't have any art. They don't have any science. They're not doing anything with the land. They don't have any cities. They're not civilized. So the green creatures pushed the forest and beach creatures off their lands and took over. The green creatures said, that's just the natural order of things. They were obviously inferior, the forest and beach people. They needed to be taught to be civilized. So now, what do you think the forest and beach people thought about these green creatures? Pushy, yeah. You know, they thought they were rude and bossy and dirty and had no idea how to live in this land. And they actually tried to teach the green creatures some things, but the green creatures just didn't want to know. So they pushed the forest and beach creatures back and said, you are inferior creatures, you must live somewhere else. So you get the idea, and I slipped up in a couple places, but all these creatures were humans. And some of the humans thought that some of the other humans were less human than they were. And to them, that made it okay for the ones who thought themselves superior to do whatever they wanted. All over the world for hundreds of years, this has been going on. One group of humans saying that another group of humans are less than human. So, you know, a fairy tale has an end, right? And a fable has an end. Well, this story doesn't have an end. So what happens next? And that part of the story is yet to be written. And it will be up to all of you to finish the story. Okay? Thank you.
You are invited to briefly share personal events in your life by dropping a pebble into the bowl or water silently, or while speaking a few words into the microphone, so we may support each other in sorrows and celebrate together in joy. This is a sacred time for us. meditation and prayer. There is not a place for everything: hate, racism, corporate greed, the spoiling of Mother Earth. Everything is not in its place: justice, equality, freedom, compassion, love. The place is within our collective hearts and minds. Where do you keep your love? Invite love in. Make a place for love. After our song of dedication, greeters will take up the offering. Generosity is a spiritual practice. Our fellowship is supported by our pledges and donations. If you are paying your pledge with a check today, please make a note in the memo line. We have a tradition in our fellowship called Share the Plate, where we split equally all cash donations and unmarked checks with a local charity. For the month of March, our Share the Plate partner is Opportunity Place. Opportunity Place is a sanctuary and shelter for families and single women in need of shelter. Since its founding in 2008, Opportunity Place has supported more than 4,000 children, parents, and single women. Please be generous. Today's service is How to Fight Supremacy Culture by Melissa Winn. Melissa Winn is a member of the UUFEC and currently serves as the Vice President of the Board. In addition to her work with our fellowship, she's a passionate ally for the LGBTQ community, working with PFLAG Niceville to facilitate local support groups. Her work in the mental health field has informed her perspective on how oppressive systems and structures impact mental, emotional, and social well-being. And most importantly, she's the reason I exist.
I'm going to start by saying this is, for me, as much as it is for anyone else. Being the self-proclaimed liberal institution that we are, most of us are probably familiar with the term supremacy, especially in the context of white supremacy or Christian supremacy. But supremacy culture is certainly not limited to those contexts. Supremacy is the belief that one's race, religion, culture, worldview, education, or mindset is superior to all others. This is often expressed through dichotomous black and white thinking. This way is right and that way is wrong. Those are the good guys and these are the bad guys. It assumes that what is good and right for me must also be good and right for everyone. What works for me must work for everyone. Like the Sith, supremacy deals in absolutes. It is certain in its sense of certainty, and it loves to tell everyone what they should and shouldn't be doing. It's perfectionistic. Nothing can ever be good enough. It's anxious, fearful about losing power and control. I have seen these traits at play in my own life and interactions with others. My kids will be the first to tell you that I am very much a black and white thinker about certain things. And my partner can confirm that when it comes to folding laundry, I am a supremacist and refuse to believe that there could possibly be another acceptable way. Like all cultures, American culture is full of conflicting beliefs, systems, and ideals. And here in the United States, supremacy culture seems to inform every other part. The idea of American exceptionalism stems from this notion that America is unique, superior, worthy of universal admiration. We have heard speeches on American exceptionalism from every presidential candidate, and we see this idea at play more aggressively today than ever. But it has always been there, quietly guiding the masses. And none of us are exempt from its influence. Our Unitarian Universalist faith tradition is rooted in Christianity, first and foremost, but over time has evolved and expanded to include many other faith traditions. Our living tradition draws from sacred texts, humanist teachings, poetry, and earth-centered spirituality, to name a few. We are made up of many beautiful beliefs and ideas, but we have also inherited ugly ones that we must be willing to face or risk perpetuating the very harm that we have accused others of bestowing onto us. We've inherited colonialism and perfectionism, patriarchy and intellectualism, dualism and black and white thinking, rugged individualism. We are just as susceptible to supremacy culture as our neighbors in the red hats. This might be hard to hear, but it's true. If we believe our faith to be superior because it is open and accepting and diverse, to the point that we shut down or ostracize others from a different tradition, are we really any better than them? I do want to take a moment here, as an aside and a caveat, to present the idea of the paradox of tolerance, which poses find where I was. Which poses that if tolerance is extended to the intolerant, it undermines the very principle of tolerance. So this is not what I'm arguing for. I'm not advocating for intolerant beliefs and ideas to be given a platform or openly perpetuated with no recourse. But if we are not careful, we can be intolerant of those we label as intolerant based on their beliefs, faith traditions, or political leanings. If we are not careful, we risk ostracizing those in the early stages of perspective shifting journeys who are coming into our community with curiosity and an openness to learn. We must remember the words of educator and civil rights activist Septima Clark. I have learned that I can work with my enemies because they might have a change of heart at any moment. I recently stumbled upon a Facebook post of a friend that illustrated the concept of supremacy culture as I see it very well. My friend, who is Catholic, had shared a very simple and personal post about preparing for Lent. They did not at anyone, they did not preach shame or attempt to proselytize. Their post was 3 words and a picture of themselves. And yet, someone of a different mindset felt the need to comment. Stop doing bad things and your conscience will be clean. To think that you have to apologize for living a decent life as a decent human to some imaginary creature so that you don't go to an imaginary place that people made up seems crazy. The commenter went on to compare Christianity to paganism with new characters. What motivated this person to leave such a demeaning comment about another person's deeply personal faith journey? What right do they have to judge another's path when no harm was being done? This, my friends, is supremacy culture. It assumes that they have the right belief and the belief of the other is wrong. Actress and LGBTQ advocate Laverne Cox cautions, each and every one of us has the capacity to be an oppressor. I want to encourage each and every one of us to interrogate how we might be an oppressor and how we might be able to become liberators for ourselves and each other. Oppression is rampant in supremacy culture. Last week, we learned the word kyriarchy. To refresh your memory of the definition, in kyriarchy, someone is not simply oppressed or privileged. We can be simultaneously privileged and oppressed by different intersecting aspects of our identity, both the privileged and the oppressor. When you do an internet search for supremacy culture, every result that comes up is about white supremacy culture. There have been a multitude of articles, studies, research papers, books, and lectures about white supremacy culture, and the argument has been made that white supremacy is foundational to the culture of the United States. As such, this culture has been overgeneralized beyond whiteness, class, straightness, patriarchy, and so on, thanks to another foundation of American culture, assimilation. For as much as supremacy likes to be better than others, being the best also requires that everyone else be like it. We saw that underlying requirement in the example of the Facebook commenter's words. What can be inferred is, if you believe differently from me, you're crazy. In 1907, President Theodore Roosevelt had this to say about assimilation and immigration. In the first place, we should insist that if the immigrant who comes here in good faith becomes an American and assimilates himself to us, he shall be treated on an exact equality with everyone else, for it is an outrage to discriminate against any such man because of creed, birthplace, or origin. But this is predicated upon the person's becoming in every facet an American, and nothing but an American. There can be no divided allegiance here. Any man who says he is an American, but something else also isn't an American at all. We have room for but one flag, the American flag. Quite a contingency for being treated with equality. In the process of assimilation, the supremacist mindset gets mixed up and stirred into create this hierarchical beast we wrestle with both internally and externally every day. So what can we do? How do we fight supremacy culture? Going back to both my own roots and our shared UU history, let's consider the words of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 1 through 3. Do not judge others, and you will not be judged, for you will be treated as you treat others. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? Translation, worry about yourself. Even now, in my post-Christian era, I think often of these verses. I think about how judgmental we are in this supremacist culture, not only of one another, but of ourselves. Because, like Jesus said, we are judged by the measure we judge others. And very often that judgment comes from within. Remember those should and shouldn't statements I mentioned in the beginning? How often do we turn those on ourselves? How do they make us feel? Empowered or shameful? What if we replace judgment with empathy and compassion for both others and for ourselves? The idea of empathy has been under attack in certain American subcultures. They argue that empathy is weak and leads to acceptance of what should be unacceptable. Sounds like something supremacy culture would do. Empathy and compassion are necessary if we are to fight against this culture. Empathy is defined as the ability to understand and feel the feelings of another. Experiencing empathy naturally leads to compassion, which is the motivation to take action to relieve suffering. Taking the time to see and sit with another's pain and allowing that pain to stir us into action on another's behalf disrupts the judgment and othering of supremacy culture. It disarms the fear and outrage that supremacy culture loves to stir up to control and manipulate. Another Bible verse I was raised on that continues to shape me is 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love. It's hard to control people who know how to love well. It's also incredibly hard to control people with insatiable curiosity, particularly when it is paired with a healthy dose of humility. Pride is another cornerstone of supremacy culture. And I'm not talking about the I'm proud to be my authentic self pride, or the I'm proud of this accomplishment I worked hard for pride. I'm talking about the rugged individualism pride that refuses to ask for help from others and subsequently tells everyone else to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. It's the pride that's so sure of itself, it refuses to change and adapt when presented with new information. That challenges what it has already decided to believe. It's the pride of certainty, absolutism, and perfectionism. The humbly curious frustrate supremacist systems, both internal and external, to no end with their ceaseless ponderings and wanderings. The should and must and need statements can't latch on when countered with why, but why? Why not? Certainty and absolutism can't find a hold in a space where its requirements and contingencies become fair game for questioning. So stay curious, my friends. It's so strange being a part of this American culture, being shaped by a system of supremacy while at the same time inspired and motivated by the individuals who have fought against it, by those who dare to hope in something better. In her book, The Small and the Mighty, American government teacher Sharon McMahon states, both of these things are true at the same time. America has been just, and it has perpetuated injustice. We have been peaceful, and we have perpetuated acts of violence. We have been and are good, and we have done terrible things to people who don't deserve them. It has been the land of the free while simultaneously sanctioning oppression. I selected America the Beautiful as our offertory today because I have recently been deeply inspired by the origins of this poem turned patriotic hymn and the author who penned it. The original poem, as found in your order of service, was written by Catherine Lee Bates in 1893. Catherine was an activist of her time and a professor of English literature at Wellesley College in Massachusetts. She had traveled to the West to teach a class in Colorado Springs, and following the end of the session, she embarked on a faculty expedition to the top of Pikes Peak in celebration. It was on the top of the mountain that she found the inspiration for her poem. Catherine never married and had no children. She did, however, have a lifelong, loving, and intimate partnership with another woman, Catherine Coman. Many historians, of course, have dismissed the intimate relationship shared between the two Catherines. They were just roommates. Right. But the Book of Remembrance Bates wrote for Coman after her death openly expressed the depth of feeling and intimacy shared between the two. Author Judith Schwartz concludes of the work, "It is obvious from the yearning desire that glows through the poems that they were a devoted lesbian couple." In a time when women were considered property, Catherine Bates fought against the cultural norms. She fought for rights, she educated others, and she loved who she loved. And on the top of a mountain, she dared to hope. Bates didn't publish America the Beautiful until 2 years after she had originally penned it. The poem was first printed in a weekly newspaper, The Congregationalist, on July 4th, 1895, and shortly after set to the music of Samuel A. Ward. The song was a contender for the national anthem, but was passed over for the more militaristic Star-Spangled Banner in 1931. Still, the song, written by a queer woman in the 19th century, holds resonance today and is considered an unofficial national anthem. I am deeply inspired by this song because it speaks to the part of America that wrestles with a supremacist culture and fights back through love, humility, and curiosity. It reminds me that while supremacy culture has shaped and influenced me, so too have the words and deeds of brave Americans who have had the courage to fight against it. And it gives me hope that I too, we too, can choose to follow in their footsteps. Bates, while initially surprised by her poem's success, later reflected that the hold as it has upon our people is clearly due to the fact that Americans are, at heart, idealists with a fundamental faith in human brotherhood. So with that, please stand as you are able in body or in spirit as we sing together our closing hymn, Catherine Lee Bates' America the Beautiful. You have the option to use the original 1893 version or the more commonly known 1911 version.
May the truth that makes us free, and the hope that never dies, and the love that casts out all fear, lead us forward together, till the day breaks and the shadows flee away. Please stay seated for the postlude. Please join us in the back for refreshments and conversation, followed by second hour discussion groups. Thank you for coming.